Hi there, I'm Scott, and this is GreatScott Knitting, a vlog of some sort. And this is episode 41 to start out the new year. So happy new year. I know it's a little bit late, so half the month's already gone. Is really happy new year that's still the phrase. But anyway, happy new year. And welcome to 2023. And the whole new year, new you thing going on, whatever is going on, resolutions. It's this season of change, of vision, looking to the future. What is the year have in store for us, and what are we doing about it? That's what the New Year's are all about. So we're going to jump into that spirit of looking forward and looking into what we want the new year to be about, how do we want to attack this year, create for ourselves, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, welcome in. My name is Scott, and this is a knitting podcast in which I talk about whatever else I want to. So for those of you who are used to this kind of crazy shenanigans that go on here, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and thank you for your continuing support. And for those of you who are new or new-ish, maybe you discovered me during the holiday season when I was doing Vlognica. Maybe you came across me during Vlogtober. Anyway, if you're new, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for checking things out. And so let's sit back and see what happens today. Well, here's what's going on. So no finished objects. So we're going to jump right into this business. I have nothing finished. I have been getting some, making progress, but not finishing anything. But you know what? That's just where I'm at. I'm not in a position right now of I don't have a lot of things. Well, I don't have a lot of things actively on the needles. So we're gonna go right into the whips. It's not whips. It's whips. The works in progress. And so here we are. My primary work in progress right now, and this is weird. I very seldom only have one active piece on the needle or work in progress. Over the past couple of years, I've had many things going at the same time, and right now it's down to it's a one at a time business. I'm back to being monogamous in my knitting. So some of you may know I am when I came out of the Stephen West mystery knit along for Twists and Turns, I loved the twisted stitch cable business that was going on. If you remember, it is over here on the far end of the wing. There was these little long panels that had that twisted stitch wave, which is really a cable that was going on. I became very obsessed with that. Loved it. I think it looks absolutely stunning. So I wanted to do more twisted cables, and so I knew of this scarf, and I decided I would get the pattern and cast it on and do some work with it. And so it is the Hallgrim scarf by Jamie McCanless. It is a twisted rib scarf. So as you see, although it's curling a lot, it'll block out. There are these really beautiful twisted rib, as you can see the ribbing, and cables. And I think these cables are just stunning. Well, I've been making my progress on here. I'm past the twisted rib cabley part, and just into the ribbing section, which is the bulk of the knitting. So I'm not quite halfway. I've still got several, probably another, I don't know, maybe six, maybe even a foot's worth of knitting to go to be at the halfway point, and then we'll go again until, and then we'll get back to the other side and do the ribbing part and end up here. And then really right now it is curling quite a bit, but once it gets wet blocked, that will, or it could even be steam blocked, that'll flatten back out and be just quite lovely. I am using some stash wool. Not my favorite color. It's a rusty color. This wool is, and of course I would naturally not have that ball band easily accessible. So we are using, oh, and that, I haven't even updated Ravelry. So it is Northland Rustic Wool in the colorway Rusts. And it is a just 100% wool, so it's non-superwash. It is a DK weight, and it's got a really nice twist to it. Nice, so it's making some. It's got your high definition. It works really well for this type of a pattern. It's not my favorite color, but it was in stash. It was a gifted color way to me, and I had a whole bunch of it, and so that's what we're using. Because I wasn't gonna go buy new yarn for this. So that's on its way. It's coming along. It'll get done when it gets done. Kind of borrowing a little bit of a page from some other folks out there, where it's like, you know what? I don't care how many projects I have going. They'll get done when they get done. I'm just going to continue working through them. That's my really only active work in progress. So we'll jump into what came into the house in terms of acquisitions. And my acquisitions were this. These are a couple of things, again, that I did not purchase, but Needles at the Ready Boys, Kevin and Ray, were having, towards the end of the year, we're having a make-along of Stephen West patterns. So I guess that makes it technically a knit-along, because he doesn't do crochet. And I won one of their drawings, so that's really cool. And so what I got was primarily the Stephen West Painting Shawls book in hardcover. So that's really super cool. I love Stephen West patterns. I love his the artwork and the wide range of people and styles that he uses in his pictures and imagery. So I have that. Now, in addition to the book, the part of that gifting, or part of that giveaway, was also a skein, or in this case a cake of yarn. This is a double cake. It's 200 grams, which equals about 860 meters, or 860 yards, 786 meters, of the Freia Handpaints. And it's this gradient cake. Maybe it's a little, there we go. Looks a little better. It's called a yarn bomb. There we go. Right side up. It's almost as big as my head, which is, gives you a sense of the size. It is a really pretty, it's 100% merino. I'm assuming non-superwash. and it has this single, it looks to be single ply. So I am thinking, so this I love. I think it's really beautiful. I am thinking of doing the painting honeycombs, the big, the big honeycomb version. But what I need to do is I do need to acquire the framing or the main color, that framing color. And I'm thinking like a navy, like a deep, dark, almost black navy color will look really stunning with this. And I want it to be in a similar base. So I'm going to be looking for a single ply 100% non-superwash merino that would go with this. So I'm going to have my eye out for that. It's not a base that I have, or I would do some dyeing of my own. So that is, and I think what I will need, it says I only need 420, but I think I'm going to get 2 skeins just to be safe. So there is that. Those are acquisitions. The gifting. I don't have a term for when things just show up at my house. Because it just, it doesn't happen enough for me to have a term for that. Now, there are some new, do I want to say this is new colorways? No, I don't know what I'm going to call this. Anyway, I did some dyeing for a particular project. But okay, so before I jump into that, however, let's talk about what's coming up next. We know that I have one item on the needles right now, and that is the Hallgrim scarf. And that's great. But here are the things that I have coming up. So Hallgrim scarf is the current project. Oh, and by the way, this is my project queue that I just cleaned up this weekend. The next thing that has to be cast on, and will probably get cast on this week, is a revisit of Cold Pale Moon Shawl by Helen Kennedy. And the reason I'm coming back to this shawl is my husband is going to go to a fashion show in Kansas City this spring, and he wanted an accessory for viewing the runway. Okay, fine, I can do that. He looked through the shawls that I had in my bin, which is my giftables, and he saw my version of Cold Pale Moon from before. Oh, and it has been gifted. But if I can find it without too much trouble, here it is. He saw this in my stash of giftables, and he was like, oh my god, that's really pretty, I really like that. I want one similar to this but in different colors. Now his favorite colors are orange and gray, so those are the world that he likes to play in. So I will be casting on Cold Pale Moon once again, but this time, and this is that Helen Kennedy. So this time I will be knitting it in. It is hang on, I'm confusing all sorts of things. It is a 2-color DK weight shawl. knit usually on a US 8 and a US 9. The reason there are two needle sizes is that in the mosaic section, the pattern has you go up a needle size to maintain an acceptable level of tension. So the colors that I dyed up were this orange. Now it's a tonal, and as you can see, there's some various tones of orange color in this, so it's not a complete solid. And gray, this nice charcoaly gray, again tonal, not not a true solid, but I think these will look really nice with each other, starting with the lighter color and going to the darker color. So it'll end off in gray with the orange as the beginning point. So I think that'll look really cool and nice and contrasty. So did some, so as you can tell, over the past couple over the past 15 to 20 days since I last joined you, did some dyeing, came up with those colors, and so now that I've shared them with you as the colorways, it is time to cast on that project. So that will probably happen this week, maybe as soon as tomorrow. Now, that takes us to talking about Mount Carmel yarns. Da, 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 da. It is back, and we are going to potentially push myself a little bit more around my dyeing this year, to give it a little more focus and a little more of my attention in the my off work time. I love to dye. I really do enjoy it. It's very I love playing with the color and learning and exploring, and I just haven't been doing it. I haven't been I have not been doing it. But so Mount Carmel Yarns has been has been updated. It has yarn back in the store. I let everything languish because I wasn't doing any dyeing, and had to really decide, is this a direction and thing I really want to continue to do. Now, given the fact that I do have a day job that I am passionate about, I enjoy, this is still a side hustle that I care about, that I want to succeed, but I'm not pouring my heart and soul into it. Maybe just a little, my left lung and a little bit of my my passion. I don't know. Going crazy. But so let's talk Mount Carmel yarns just for a little bit. So there are some things in shop. Woohoo! And if you, I'll put the link to the shop in the notes, and Mount Carmel Yarns is down there, but I'll kind of call it out. Feel free to follow my shop. That way you'll get Etsy updates as to when I drop some new colorways and new yarn into the shop. It is right now separated between the fingering weights and the DK weights. My fingering weights range between a 100% superwash merino and a 75-25 superwash merino, or sometimes I call it 75-25 and sometimes I call it basic sock. But these are all those fingering weight colorways that I currently have in shop. These are not new. These I've had for a while. And so these are all running at, this one's still at $28, but the rest of them are at 26. I'll probably lower that price to balance out what the rest of them are. So those are all, running around 26 bucks. And so, yeah, so there's that. Here are my DK weights. I don't have a lot of DK in the shop right now. I'm going to be adding another colorway probably this week, and I'll show that to you here in a bit. But here's what I've got going on in my DK world. So please feel free, come by, check out my current stock. And I would love to be at the point where I'm like, there's nothing in my shop because y'all bought it all. But I'm not there yet. So speaking of dyeing, yesterday I got into my mood for dyeing. I was like, it's the new year. Let's get into it. Let's start building a habit of doing some colorways, especially on weekends. And I am in the coming months, there will be an event at our local knitting guild where they do they started doing, it seems like an annual thing. They did it last year. They're doing it again this year, of a dyers panel. Now, there are about a half a dozen, small batch hand dye companies and producers of hand-dyed yarns here in the Wichita area. There's like about 6 or 7 of us. It's really kind of an exciting area, exciting to have that many indie dyers here on my doorstep, not counting myself. And so the local Knitters Guild has them come in, and last year they did a Q&A. This year we're going to do another Q&A, but this year the plan is to have them bring a uniquely dyed colorway based on an inspiration photo, and then of course offer it for sale to the guild. And then if they choose to carry that color, they can, or if it's just we're just going to have these few skeins for you all, that's fine too. Anyway, a potential inspiration photo was circulated, and I wanted to share that photo and what I have done with it. And so the photo that was shared with me was this one. As you can tell, it is a stock photo. So, but as you can see, it's got a lot of color in it. It is vibrant. It's bold. It has that magenta-y pink going on. And for those of you who may not be aware, the Pantone color of the year is Viva Magenta. It is a vibrant pink, but it's more, it's a very warm, it's very reddish, it's very warm, it's very I don't know, it has some strength to it that I really like. Let me see if I can let me just kind of bring that up, some of those images of Viva Magenta. I saw some coworkers of mine brought this up in a meeting, and I hadn't even thought, beginning of the year, it's Pantone color of the year time. And Oh, come on. My searching skills are just terrible. Here we go. And so, yeah, let me just share their website. You know, here we go. The Magentaverse, Pantone Color of the Year, Viva Magenta. Um, and so there's just all these wonderful views of the color. Let's see if I can see some. There were some really great. Oh yeah, so these really great images that I just really love that play with different tonalities and different concepts of this. Like this one's one of my favorite images. I just think this is so energetic and vibrant. But just loving this color. So it got tangent. Sorry. So this to me spoke to that color, as well as there's reds, there's whites, there's deep blues, and there's violet, and so it's just this bouquet of color that I found very vibrant and very exciting. With that, I got out my colors, got out my dyes. Um, I need to replenish my stock of blank yarn. As you can see, that's it. That's all I have. That's like, so no wonder I'm not doing a lot of selling, because I haven't been able to restock my canvas. So that's one of the things I'm hoping to do in the coming months, is to get some of my canvas going. So if you could buy some of my yarn, I could then invest that in more canvas. Um, Canvas meaning blank yarn, bare yarn. So with that, I hang on, before I show you that, let me show you my yarn mop. Now, a yarn mop, for those of you who may not know, is sort of a skein of yarn that you kind of set aside as to clean things up or to test out color. At least that's how I use it. So it's like if you're doing speckling and you're using your fingers to speckle, you can wipe your fingers off on the yarn mop, which is damp, so you can clean your fingers off, dry them, and then go in for a different color. So then you set and go with that, set the color on the yarn mop, and you have a very unique skein that you can either sell or use or whatever. So my yarn base here is my DK weight that I am starting to that I use, which is a 75% merino, 25% nylon. So it is basically a DK sock based yarn, but it's really pretty. It's really soft, and it's really bouncy. So as you can see, it just has a really nice round aspect to it. So anyway, here's my yarn mop. So we've got those magentas that are going to show up. We've got the blues from that one corner or that section. We have some yellows. And there's that magenta that's coming in, that lovely magenta color. And where is it? Where's that red? There's the red. Where's that the magenta? Man, I'm losing my brain. No, it's definitely the red, because yeah. So that's my yarn mop. This is kind of where I played with color, and then when I had I had some leftover color in pots and stuff from mixing color, that I just then in the end just dumped on the skein, and I have this really crazy single skein of vibrant color, which actually in and of itself could work as the colorway, but it is not the colorway I have. So the colorway I have is less saturated than this. And so here we go. I'm going to go with this one that I'm going to unwrap. So I tried a different technique as well in terms of my dyeing process, the technique I used to dye the skein. And I also wanted to go for, because I often have a heavy hand with the color, which causes things to look a lot like this, which is fine. But I wanted to try going lighter and brighter. So here's where the magentas are playing in. There's the blues, and you can see it's a much lighter, there's much more white. There's some whites and yellows. There's some violets, violety purples, and there's the reds. And so as a colorway, it is much more understated, but I love how I think this will knit up in a really pretty way, which is ultimately what you want it to do, in that you're going to get not a lot of pooling. Well, you might get some, but because it's still a lot of light in it, I think it has a very spring, fresh feel to it, which is much different from this heavier skein. This would look really cool in a fade. Ooh, could you imagine? And so here is that bouquet of color that I have dyed up with, it has some yellows, it has some reds, pinks, purples, blues. What it does not have is green, which I thought the yellows and the blues might mix together, and they didn't, based on the technique I used. And also no oranges. So even though there is that pop of yellow that shows up, it blows out quite a bit. But you can see this pop of yellow there and here. And the fun thing is, it did not mix together. The orange or the red remained. It's like if you look right in here, you'll see that the red and yellow, even though they're like right there with each other, no blending into an orange. Same thing with the blues and the yellows together, did not blend into a green. So I was really pleased with that. And I really like how this turned out. And I think they're going to knit up in a really pretty fashion. There might be some pooling, but there's enough. Yeah, I really like how this turned out. Now this is on this is on my DK. This is not my final, may not be my final entry into that, but these will be going up in the shop probably later today, which is Sunday, January 15th. Well, it is the absolute middle of the month. Sunday, January 15th. And so these will be going up later today for access for you all, with a $26 price point. And there are 5 skeins. I do not think you'll see that exact particular colorway in the future. Again, this is more of a one-off. Right now, I'm in a one-off stage. I am not at a point right now. I took notes on what I did, but right now I'm still dying by feel, and I am not having any good success getting to the point of saying, you know what, this is my tried and true process of getting what I want out of the yarn and the color. I'm still experimenting, and that's why I need to do more so I can really get to the point where I feel comfortable. I don't consider myself an industry dyer yet. I really don't. I am becoming one, but I'm not yet there. and I haven't focused on that part of my craft. And so 2023 is going to be a year to spend more focus on dyeing yarn, and finding a way to get good. And by that, my definition of good at it. And I'm just not there yet because I haven't practiced. That's just the fact of the matter is I have not practiced. So the practice is in not just the techniques of dyeing itself, but in the note taking and the level of detail, so that what I do today I could repeat in the future. That's the trick, is the repetition. Because if you're like, oh my god, I love this colorway, I want to be able to buy it and use it multiple times, I don't know that I'll ever get this again. I have a good strong suspicion, but it may not be you would be able to maybe fade them together, but you couldn't put them side by side. So getting there, folks. But hey, if you like that colorway, go pick it up in the shop. No excuses. I think it's beautiful. I would use it. Okay. So that's the fibery goodness that's been going on. Couple other things. I've been doing more reading this year. I have been reading, and I've been, instead of buying actual paper based books, which is, believe me, it is still my huge preference. Couple of the I've been reading a book for work, kind of for work. It's not entirely for work, but it is the power. Oh, it always pops away. Let me see if I can get back to the. Here we go. The Power of Discipline by Daniel Walter. How to use self-control and mental toughness to achieve your goals. The reason I chose this book, some of my coworkers are doing the 75 hard challenge. And without getting into the details of it, it's basically a challenge around a series of activities that you will do for 75 days. Things like exercise twice a day for, I think it's like 30 to 45 minutes, and one time has to be outside. Another part of the challenge would be reading a nonfiction self-help type of empowerment book, or a skill, increasing a skill or something like that. Not a nonfiction, but or not a fiction book for fun, but something that is going to improve you. Every day for reading 10 pages every day, minimum. And then and then there's other things. It's like adhere to a diet you choose. The exercise is, you choose the exercise, but it has to be done 45 minutes a day, once outside. And then there's a couple other things along that concept. The idea being that it's not so much about what you do, but it's the discipline that you create in the doing of it. It's kind of like taking this, and here's the kicker. Here is the huge kicker. If you miss doing any of those key prescribed things of the 75 hard on any given day, you start the counting of the 75 days over. The idea is that you do these things consistently 75 days in a row. And so if you miss a day, guess what? You start over and you have to go 75 days of doing it. And so it is more about pushing yourself, having that self drive, that self persistence. So I'm reading this book about self discipline, mastering your own mind around getting those things done that you want to do, or that even that other people are telling you to do. That, you know, it's that idea that, you know, here at the beginning of the year, we often do that New Year's resolution, you know, making a huge plan about exercise, diet, you know, what, regardless, you know, no matter what it is, we often set those goals in January, and by the end of February, early March, we have we've dropped those goals and said they're not important anymore, or other things have become more important. And it's not so much because the goal wasn't good, or that we didn't try. It's that we found it hard to change our habits. And so I want to talk a little bit about changing, not just a habit, but simply change in general. So that's our Scott Talk topic for today, is change, and just kind of embracing what change means and how change works. Because guess what, folks? No one really likes change, but guess what is always happening? Everything is changing. Always. There's constantly a cadence of change going on in our lives. Whether we choose to embrace that change and go with the change, or try to ignore it, does not change the fact that change does not alter the change is happening. So, for example, we know these things. We have a cyclical cycle. You know, we have this cycle that happens called the seasons. The weather changes. We expect it to be cold in the northern hemisphere during the months between November and, say, April. And we expect that to warm up. And then between the months of June and August and September, we expect it to be really warm. And so we have these expectations, and so we know that cyclical change. We've gotten used to that. So there are things about change that we are very comfortable with, that we know about, that are habitual because they've happened over and over for us. So if we were to move, if those of us in the northern hemisphere were to move to the southern hemisphere, and those seasons are opposite, we would have to get used to that. It would be uncomfortable to go through that change. And change is that idea of moving from comfortability into uncomfortability. So if we were all together and I were to ask you this question, and you might even take a moment to jot down how you would respond to this question, change, or it's not a question, it's more of a phrase. How would you finish this phrase? Change is what? So for you, when you think about change, your life changing, your world changing, changes happening from the outside, changings happen from the inside. Change is what? I am guessing that if we asked, many of you would respond in ways similar to this. It's frightening or scary. It can be frustrating. It's inevitable. It's good. It's stressful. But change can also be innovative and creative and fun and empowering. But at the same time, it's frightening. It could be depressing. And, we have many different ideas about what change is for us. And sometimes those ideas are good and empowering and give us the energy to embrace that change and move forward. And sometimes They are blocks and hurdles that we have to overcome, like fear and frustration and stress. And all of those things are very common. And so, like, step one is get in touch with how you feel about change, even if it's change that you are bringing upon for yourself, which often New Year's resolutions are changes that we enact for ourselves to better ourselves. So this is coming from the inside. So you would think this should be easy. I'm doing the changing. No, it's still going to require a level of persistence, self-discipline, especially in the harder moments when instead of getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go take a walk so that you'll be refreshed, ready for the beginning of the day, we choose to hit the snooze button 3 or 4 extra times. I'm having some focusy issues. Let's see if we can fix it. There we go. So that happens, right? We hit the snooze button instead of getting up and taking that walk. Why? Because it's easier. It's what our habit is. We're used to that. It's comfortable. I don't want to be uncomfortable. And so once things really start getting real and we start stepping out of our comfort zone into that area of fear and uncertainty, that's when it gets real. And that's where you have to have that persistence to say, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's hard, it's scary, it's uncomfortable, I'm going to do it anyway. All right, so let's talk the process. Change has a process that happens. It's not a process of necessarily, there's 10, it has 10 days of this and 10 days of this. No, but it is a process that deals with time and results that you get with change. And so it's a model that kind of looks like this. Now, you may think that, oh, well, I've seen a different change model in another book. And that's true. But many of them point out some key probably have some key similarities. There is a point of status quo, which is where you are today. And if you see on the horizontal axis is time, on the vertical axis are results that you get. So your status quo, you have the results that you're getting today. And then the change initiates, which takes you into the zone of disruption. Zone of disruption is, that things that things are going to change and the changes have begun to happen and are disrupting the status quo. Now, you'll notice at the bottom of that dip in results, you have a point of decision. And that point of decision is that point where you say, I'm really bought into and I'm adopting the change and I'm going to move forward with it. I'm not looking back. I am committed to this change and making it work. That is that point of decision. Oftentimes we don't get to that point of decision, and the disruption that we experience flattens out, and now we have a lower level of result that we're getting. We did change, but we didn't change for the better. So it's that point of decision that's really important, which takes us into the zone of adoption. It's that period of time where we begin to adopt the new habits, the new methods, the new practices that we're putting in place. And it's not always messy. We're going to have the adoption is where most change fails. It's where most of our goals get dropped off because it gets hard and we have failures and we have setbacks. It's not a nice smooth curve in most cases. It's going to be a difficult it's going to be more like this that eventually takes you up. So it's that zone of adoption. But when you persist, when you use that your self-discipline that says, I don't want to do this, it's uncomfortable, I don't like it, but you do it anyway, that you start to create those new habits, those new ways of doing things, those new practices that eventually begin giving you better results, better performance, better health, better weight, whatever your better is, you start seeing the better, to the point where you eventually get back up to the level you were before and start to move into what is called the zone of innovation. The zone of innovation is that idea is not that great, now I'm back where I was. No, why did we change in the first place? Was to be better than what I was before I did the change. And so you get into the zone of innovation, and the idea here is not only am I doing these practices, but I'm finding ways to make those practices even better so that I'm climbing to a higher level of results than I've ever had in the past. You continue and you persist and you improve. And as you improve, let's say you desired to become more fit. Well, you reach a point where it's like, oh, it's hard. I'm not getting the results I wanted. Well, it's because you've disrupted. Results are going to go down. But when you stick with it, when you persist, when you can make those changes a habit to the point where they finally feel like this is my new norm, great. Guess what? That's when things really shift and change. It's once it feels normal. Once it feels normal, you get into that realm of innovation and you're like, I can walk further than I could before, or I could run further than I could before. I don't get as winded. I feel more energized. That's where the real change starts. When you start moving where you were before to a higher level. I know, it's crazy. So that, and when you think of change in that fashion of it's not just moving from here, I'm going to go from here to here. No, it's going to be, I'm going to go from here to here to here. It's a harder journey to think about, but it's how change works. So simply, I think having that idea that we know there's going to be this dip in performance of the results we want to get, and it looks like I'm getting nowhere. In fact, it looks like life is worse than it was before. Guess what? It is. Things are not where you were before. You actually may be down here, if I put it like this. You may be down here, and you want to be not just here, you want it to be up here. So you have, whenever you're making a change, performance is going to dip. You're not going to get the results you want, but you have to be persistent, because why? You're building a new set of habits. And once those new habits become the norm, that's when you go higher. So you have to unlearn what you have learned so you can go forward. I know Yoda was so wise. Now, here's the real kicker. It starts up here with that mindset. And with that mindset, I want you to think this. Don't think about, I'm just going to use this. I'm going to try to lose weight. Sounds like a great thing to do. Great goal. In fact, I may even put some numbers on it. I'm going to try to lose 20 pounds. Okay. What your brain hears and your psyche, what that inside person hears is, you're going to try, which means you might not make it, and that's going to be okay. But at least you tried, right? So here's the thing. If you did indeed try to lose weight, but you failed, well, no, you didn't fail, because what did you tell yourself? You told yourself this: I'm going to try. And if you actually did try, even though you may not reach the results, you were successful. You tried, but you're not getting the results you want. So trying isn't the answer, is it? It's not in the trying, it's in the doing. And so you need to tell yourself not that you're going to try to do something, but that you're going to do it. Instead of saying, I am going to try to lose 20 pounds. Instead say, I am going to weigh 20 pounds lighter when I'm done with this. It's subtle, but there's difference. Instead of saying, and if you have a hard time saying, I am, having that affirmation of I am 20 pounds lighter, and you're like, no, I'm not. I'm like, and actually, I feel like I'm 20 pounds heavier. Guess what? Change the verbiage. I am becoming a person who is healthier. I am becoming a person who is 20 pounds lighter. I am doing the work. And when you put yourself in that place, let's say you're wanting to get a promotion at work, and you have to make a change in your behavior in order to be seen as a person who's promotable. Great. Instead of saying, I'm going to try to do this, simply say, I am that, I am a leader, or I am becoming a leader. And the activity of constantly working towards that goal is what is more important than saying try, because try leads a lot of opportunity for stopping. I tried it, didn't work. Guess what? It's not going to work at first. And you have to continually do that work. So do the work, don't try. So that's my Yoda moment inside my Scott Talk. Anyway, I have spent your time, and so it's time for you to get back to doing your work. Be that having time to do some knitting. Maybe you're doing some other crafty work. Maybe you're doing other things that are really important as well. And so I appreciate that you chose to take some time out of your busy schedules accomplishing those things that you want to accomplish, to spend a little bit of time with me. And I hope that you feel it was some time well spent. I know I enjoy sharing my views, thoughts, ideas, my crafts with you, and all of that. You can support me in these ways. If you enjoyed your time with me today, like and subscribe this video, share it with some friends, and go visit my shop and see if you have some money that you're wanting to invest in hand-dyed yarn. I happen to have some. So shameless plug, I apologize, but I guess that's what you do when you're in business. You're like, I love my yarn and wanting to share it. Here it is. Go take a look. So with that, thank you again for joining. May you have peace in your home and the fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Until I see you again, have a wonderful, wonderful start for your year.